All right, welcome to Artist Trauma. This week we did Pirandello, two plays by him, six characters in search of an author, and so it is if you think it's so. Um, so Chris, how'd you
hmm
think of these?
I thought, I actually thought the review, this blurb from Eric Bentley was pretty correct. Or no, just the general thing, the founding architect of 20th century drama. Yeah, I can see that. In the questioning of the position of characters, the play with symbolic forms versus personal identity, that's obviously there. There's clearly a lineage from Pirandello to Harold Pinter to beyond. I mean, really to SNL after that, but um, to so he said, they say he's a forerunner to the theater of the absurd. I'd almost say that he feels more modern, feels
Um,
after the theater of the absurd.
yeah, it's a weird relationship he has there. There is this kind of self-contemplation. There is this sort of touches of absurdity. Actually, to me, what Pirandello feels like is the theatrical version of a Magritte painting. Because every Magritte painting is just like something. It's a clever idea. It's very
Yeah.
explicitly clever. It has a sort of a sense of humor to it. Pirandello is kind of funnier than Magritte. Or less. There's less of an atmosphere of menace to Pirandello, I'd say. He's in that like register.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally true. I mean, he does smuggle in traumatic things though.
You
He's
know,
like,
there is.
so it's like he's really funny. I think that my favorite thing about him from these two plays is that juxtaposition, that you can have comedy juxtaposed with traumatic things. I mean, the first play, it's like,
Spoilers from here on out.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
full spoilers. And this guy, this matters. These aren't like spoilers where you're like, oh, whatever. This is like you are ruining the experience by watching this without reading them first or watching them
yeah,
first.
yeah. So if you don't care, then proceed. So anyway, but yeah, what you're saying.
Although six characters in search of an author is just very, very simply. You have a theater troupe rehearsing a play, another Pirandello play. Really funny.
Which he makes a good bit of fun of like, oh, this pretentious intellectuality. They would only put this on because none of the French writers can do anything. Uh,
Yeah. Just silly. I liked that. I was pretty happy with that.
that was endearing.
That was very endearing. Um, and these six kind of he really is very specific of how these six people arrive, but they're supposed to be it's like everything is supposed to give them their own distance from everyone else. And these six characters show up and yeah, they're pretty great. They show up and they say, we have a story and we just are looking for an author and we have a play but they don't have anything tying it together. And then the funniest thing happens is they just start getting into their melodrama, just
Well,
like for everyone.
yeah,
And it's very over the top melodramatic. I mean, it's like it's
yeah,
days of our lives, you know?
yeah, it's like I married this woman, but she didn't marry me from love, so I had her go off and live with her lover, which broke her heart, sort of. And
Oh, and
there's the stepson who was put off to live in the country, and he's become this resentful, mean-hearted
hates everybody. He's not a part of this family. And
and
the stepdaughter attacked by the father, which
oh
is
no, like she had to go support her mother by like working at a brothel, and then who guess who shows up at the brothel? The estranged father. Um,
I mean, it's literally designed to be the most like bathetic. You know the word bathetic,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the top, melodramatic, like unbelievable thing. I mean, And it becomes real, as it goes. I mean, it's really kind of horrifying, actually. Like the family kind of dies or not.
It's so it's a very odd relationship they have with time and story here because at the same it's like they're talking about how the father has died and the woman is in mourning for him, but he's right there because he's a character in the story like everyone else. um
Yeah, and there's a lot of like meditation, maybe too much, my one critique. Meditation on the nature of fiction versus reality.
yeah, it's
Like a lot of the father's stuff is like, you know, philosophical playwright, and some of that was really nice. It did carry on a little, but
yeah, sometimes I mean, it was sort of it's very cute. And I mean that in all of the senses of that word. Like when it's just like, oh, like, well, this is the leading lady because you have the actors on stage too,
Mhm.
along with the six characters. You have the leading lady, like, oh, she'll play you, and it's just like, I look nothing like that. Or like, like, oh, like, let's set up the stage, get that, I can, get our whatever the cupboards in, and it's like, oh, the gold, the yellow cupboards in which I spent all those days that were like up to my chest, and it's like, no, this blue one is gonna do. That's what we have on hand. And it's just a bunch. It's like that's fine. That's cute. It's just not that deep.
No, it's not that deep. I mean, it's very specifically hammering the point that while these are fictional, they're characters in this disembodied time sense, they still have a authenticity to themselves that is humorous within the context of fiction, which, in a play, you have to be malleable and use your imagination. And they just can't. They cannot use their imagination. They have to stick with their reality, which makes it, of course, bad fiction.
Well,
But
it's I mean, well, no, no, no. I mean, it's just like the normal like adaptation sickness of like it's
exactly.
hard. It's like you have to make compromises with like, well, what actors do we have on hand for this play? Like we have six. Um,
Well,
and
and then the lady shows up, the hat lady,
yes,
who's just,
yes.
it's
What
like
was
Julia
that? What
Roberts.
was that?
It was like Julia, it's literally in Ocean's 12 when Julia Roberts shows up as Julia Roberts. It's a terrible movie. Or like this is way better. But like I was like, "Oh, they stole that from Pirandello." It's like this lady shows up who's clearly sort of just,
Well, the lady,
well,
the
no,
lady's
see,
another
clearly
character.
nothing. Sorry, go
Oh, no,
for
no,
it.
no. She's another character, isn't she's the madame of the brothel, and
Yeah.
she talks in this like horrific pigeon, of like Spanish, Italian, French, whatever.
English. I'm assuming it's translated, but I'm assuming some of the English wasn't translated.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know. But this, and like they make a big point about like the sheer absurdity of like the madame, um basically getting the making these obscene proposals to the girl to become a prostitute in that horrific pigeon.
Oh yeah, you go to the corn alu parties, blah, blah, blah. It's just great. It's not. I mean, I think it's sort of that trope of like, no, no, there's no trope. It's just silly. I don't think there's any trope.
I mean, it's
I think it's just like
I mean,
maybe there's a trope, like kind of that sort of like could be like I remember there's a story where someone was talking about the type of kebab they wanted in England, and they're like, I don't want to go to a nice white place. I want them to speak different languages that are mixtures of things I've never heard of, serving me meat that's a plentiful mixture of all meat, or whatever. And it's kind of like that, right? It's like this lady shows up from all over the world.
I mean, I don't even know if it's that, or if it's just like, yeah, she's just this ignorant woman who just happens to have the conniving force to become a madame.
No, I
Um,
okay, partially also, sorry. I think much more importantly is all these characters are super eloquent and very, very able to define their position. And then there's just this like human who is just like blah, 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 blah. I think it's not that deep. Okay. Like I
I
love
don't
this
think it's
player,
that deep.
but I
I
don't like
don't.
there's like
It fits very well with Pirandello's attitude towards life. Just I don't know. It's like the fact that like this very tragic circumstance is also mixed in with that comedy. I something to do with that. I'm not fully sure.
yeah. No, no, I think so. I mean, so like just on the plot level, they start doing the scenes from this melodrama, and the Madame shows up, and then you drift sort of into the perspective of the son, who is the outcast of the family, and there's a lot of like debate, oh, well, was it outside or was it inside? Which I thought was fine. And then you get to this point where the son can't leave the play, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, like he couldn't like he's like upset and like gonna like said he's gonna storm out of there and like no he can't. Well, I mean that felt a little bit. I just felt a little bit obvious in a certain way of like, well, okay, yeah, like he's a character, like he can't do that, and like that would be the explanation. And I don't feel. I mean, I guess it's sort of like you have these characters in a drama who in a sense hate being there, but there's some other perspective like yes, but that is their existence, that is the core of their existence. It's
Yeah,
like
it's kind of like the play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead about the two characters from Hamlet, and they get
yeah,
their what are they doing during this play?
it's
The running theme in 20th century plays. I think I'd agree with you. It's a little cheap.
yeah, like
I
Rosencrantz
mean,
and Guildenstern. I should reread it. And by the way, I like some other stuff Tom Stoppard's done. The little
yeah,
bit of influence I've had. Like I think he's a very clever man, and enjoyable. But but like that play, I found like there was just enough cuteness. Like just there's a moment in
I
it when like just has like one of them just yell to the audience fire
yeah,
just so that
yeah.
you can say fire to a crowded theater. Um,
I mean, when I was 18 to 22, that would have been like the most deep transgressive position. Like, and as an undergrad in experimental art, I was like, oh man, pushing these boundaries, that's the future. Now, I think first of all, it depends on a very stable structure to be funny, like all parody does. So, you have to have certain norms of the play for these things to function at all. It depends on a play called Hamlet. This one depends on us having certain expectations of the theater. And my main problem aesthetically with these types of maneuvers is that when they happen, it's almost like a scientific discovery where we go, well, who did it first? Who broke that wall first? And it becomes like a technique that if you do it, you did something new without considering if that new thing is particularly deep.
yeah, it's there's two things that come to mind is well, Craps Last Tape, the Beckett play we read.
Yeah.
Um, it's like that one was very innovative in this way. It was like, oh yeah, you're a lot of it is just listening to recordings of crap from earlier in his life and his replaying them and seeing his facial reactions to them. It's a very, very unorthodox way of presenting a play. Like it's
For
just
sure. Of
this
course.
layered self-reflection. It's just heartbreaking. But I also think about like another work I not that long ago saw. Oh, I'm blanking on the blessed man's name. The guy who did Grand Budapest Hotel. Wes
Wes
Anderson.
Anderson.
Yeah, I saw his most recent movie, Asteroid City, which is I enjoyed it. I had fun. It's Wes Anderson. Who doesn't have fun with Wes Anderson?
Yeah, he's a great director, even
But
if it
it's
his
and it's
worst
like
film.
and it's I liked it better than like Life Aquatic. Life Aquatic got a little
I
slow.
forgot about that one.
It's a little.
Yeah,
I wish they cut it down by 30 minutes. Um, but no, this was very. But it was like the way it was presented is like, oh, you have it's a play that like with the play actors like in black and white and like talking about drama about the play in the background, and then you also just get like the actual Asteroid City play as a movie going on.
yeah,
It moves back and forth between those two, and I like that idea. I like that idea tremendously. There's something really interesting about like the layers of representation that
100%.
creates. I don't think it's said very much in Wes Anderson's film. I feel like some other work could really do something amazing with that,
Yeah.
but
You can't just use media and display it as a technology.
yeah,
Um, Crap's Last Tape is totally different. It has this innovative quality of all these plays and movies we're talking about, but it's using it to show you existential moments of like the dude's whole life. And there's just a deeper purpose there. It's not shallow. And I love the Pirandello in that I was very, very entertained. Did you find it maybe shallow? Just not the second one, but this first one.
the first one, yeah, like I found it very diverting,
Hmm.
making a lot of fine points which are respectable, but it just rather feels like too much of a deal is made out of it. Like I feel like a disservice has been done to Pirandello that this is the play that they would point to with.
Yeah, because I thought the second play was better.
Yeah, one thing I do also want to mention
Oh
is
yeah, but we don't need to, yeah, we got to talk a little more about
yeah,
this play. All right.
is just on this issue like of the blurring of the medium.
Yeah.
Inland Empire by David Lynch does some stuff in this uh, terrain, and it goes into the movie a lot, but there's one particular moment um, towards the end that I just was utterly shocked by. It just emotionally like what are we doing now? Holy Christ!
Oh,
Like
fantastic.
I thought this was going completely. I mean, it wasn't that different in a sense, but it's haunting. I don't want to spoil it because you haven't
Yeah,
seen
and I'm gonna watch it, and I mean, but I think what we're talking about is really important in the sense that at every university I've been at,
it.
some student has basically tried to recreate that play in music. It's it's sometimes called like a postmodern technique. I don't really at this point I don't really care to use that. You can almost just say media mixing for frame mixing, I think would be. But like I saw a piece in my PhD by one of the student composers where it was about the players having to follow a map to find their seats to then begin playing the piece. It was bad. But it like did that thing. It's kind of a cliche at this point, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean it's really just the postmodern version of film music. Um,
Mm.
it's trying to get a very specific and unprofound effect. Um, that in some other context maybe you can do something like that. Like the fact that it's like, oh, we start the play and the curtain's already up and the characters are just and the actors are just on stage. It's like, well, that's a new experience and there's good reason for that.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to be also a little careful in my criticism of Pirandello. Like it's sort of with love. Like I really did enjoy these two plays,
Yeah.
and I thought they were really innovative. I think that I was shocked at how much I was jumped into modern discussions of these things that I've had with numerous people at the college level. So I have a lot of baggage around these sort of techniques. It's sort of by the 70s, they sort of just are like the thing you make fun of. You know, they sort of were like I saw another piece of music is a little relative on this, where it's a cello piece, but in the middle, his mom calls and chastises him for trying to play cello in his mom's basement. You know, and it's like, sure, you know, but what is the sense of life here, right? Like, is this going anywhere, or was
You
that to
need to
like
have a
oh,
point.
him,
And
you
it's
know?
like, well, one thing I'll say about this whole
Uh-huh.
stunt of a play, it's more than a stunt. It's not like what Hale
Right.
Rosenberg says about like uh, art in the 60s, 70s, whatever,
Yeah.
around that time. It's like seldom does one see so much inventiveness combined with so little talent. Um,
Yeah, and that would of course be like Yoko Ono, some of the New York Fluxus people, which is just true, I think. I
Yeah,
mean,
and it's but here it's like Pirandello, like he gets away with this stunt in part because he does have this sort of intellectual frivolity. You know, it's like his world does feel very much like these little clever, self-reflective challenges. It's in this
yeah.
like Magritte does. Like Magritte is in a sense you can call it gimmicky in a certain way, his art, but it really isn't because he believes in those gimmicks. Those gimmicks are his life, just like a plot or um a traditional landscape is the life of some other painter. Um
Yeah, yes. I agree. And I think there's still some soul in Pirandello.
yeah. Um so I think oh um how would you think of the ending by the way of the parent of six characters?
Oh, you mean where he was like, well, that was an interesting day.
Well, no, like before, I mean, just before then, I'm just like the sort of sentimental, scandalous play just reaches its absolute height with like the young son
Drowns,
shooting the
shooting.
the little girl. Um,
Yeah.
like what? Like, Jesus Christ!
I mean, it kind of fits, you
I mean,
know?
it fits. It fits.
Uh,
If you're gonna have that kind of play, like yes, there you go.
It
Um,
is, it is, I mean, ironic because, of course, it's like the type of play that they're setting is the type of one they're making fun of, too, in a little bit at the beginning of like
yeah, it's
the dramatic things.
yeah. I guess what I find I guess what would have been funny is to actually see that play and just like
Yeah, actually, wait a minute. Can we talk about that really quick? I think that one thing our previous discussion did might have done a little harm
Mhm.
to just any time in history going and seeing this play with no expectation. Because if you just go in, I mean, it's a trip.
Yeah, I mean because like one thing that's very that I very highly respect in this work that's notable is the way it moves in and out of these layers of representation. How at one point it's like okay, this is a character who's like trying to convey to you his motivations qua literary object. And then it becomes like, no, but this is my personal tragedy as a human being. And now we're actually like engaging with that character as an actual character.
Yeah,
And like the way it like goes back and forth and straddles that line is something just fascinating and delightful.
it
Um,
is. And there's also this really deep component of time, right? Where identity is lived as static. You know, you just are who you are, right? Like I'm me. I've always been this way. What the hell are you talking about? I've never been any different. That's not fully true, but there's part of my brain that tells me that's true. Like a useful fiction. And then, of course, you're not. Things change all the time. It's all over. And so the great representation of the change versus the staticness of the character is I think maybe the deepest part of the play.
Yeah, and it's that kind of relationship with identity. It's very similar to the sort of concern with truth that occurs in So It Is If You Think So. Um, it's let's just get into that one.
Yeah, I mean it's good to kind of bounce back and forth between the two too. So we don't have to abandon the first one. But so this one is very it's a little simpler, sort of, than the first one, in that there's these people in an apartment building, and it doesn't even really matter who anyone really is, but there's something up with the new people who arrive. Something going on. There's
Yeah, like
something up with the neighbors,
yeah,
man.
it's like we tried to go to the old woman's room twice and we were denied entrance. How incredibly rude was that?
Yeah.
And every day she goes to the courtyard of the apartment of her daughter and her husband, and she'll just like talk with them from the balcony. The daughter will come out to the balcony and she'll talk with them for and the husband will come down and visit the mother-in-law occasion like twice a day or something like that. What's going on? Why the mother-in-law actually just visit the actual apartment? What is happening?
Yeah, why do they have two apartments? What is going on? Why isn't it just a family, one roof? And
And so there's
there
this
are
mystery.
yeah, and the whole play is about it. And sort of, it's sort of about like it's somewhat of a parallax, like
Well,
of
there's
interpretation. But wait, hold on, wait, no. There's just the stories. We have to tell
yes,
the story.
we have to tell the stories.
So first, the son says, "No, look, my they finally corner these people one at a time." And then the son goes, "No, the reason we do this is my her daughter died. My wife died 2 years, 4 years ago, and I got remarried, and she thinks the new wife is my old wife, and she's happy to live in that delusion." Yes, that's it.
And
Okay.
this is a
Sorry.
delusion we want to preserve to
I want to
sure.
preserve so she can't get close. The end.
Yeah, my wife just can't leave the apartment because of that.
Right. Which doesn't make any sense, but that's what I love about it is neither of these stories fucking make any sense at
I
all.
mean, well, the thing is that like, I mean, they make sense in the same way that six characters in search of an author. That story makes sense of it
Sure.
in this grand exaggerated world of Italian theater. It's like we can we can suspend our disbelief.
Oh
Like,
yeah, totally. All right, so what? So then, what's
but the
the?
characters at least find that to be a plausible um,
They're
uh,
like, sure.
tale.
All right, so
Um,
then no, we got the mother-in-law and her story. Go for it. You tell her
yeah,
story.
her story is that the son-in-law is actually the crazy one, um, because the wife uh, got ill and had to go away to a sanitarium or something like that, and then he acts as if his wife, had died, and that this new woman is actually his second wife, even though it's actually his original first wife. And the mother-in-law, along with the rest of the family, pretend that, oh yes, this is the first. This is actually your second wife. We're just going to play along with your delusion here.
And most importantly, the wife playing along
Well,
with the.
yeah, and we'll talk about the wife at the end. Um,
I So most importantly, for 95% of the play, the wife is sort of a MacGuffin. Like she's just whatever. Like we don't she could be a dead tarantula. Like you
well, no,
don't.
as in like the what I feel like is the author stand-in. Um, what was his name? Ladisi. I'm probably mispronouncing these Italian names. Ladici is like saying, "Oh, she could be a ghost. We don't know."
We don't know. Well, yeah, but Ladise is also saying we can't know the truth.
Yeah, this is the situation: is that all the other characters are very deeply disturbed by by like, well, which is it? Which is the case? One of these two stories must be so. And his reaction is like, there is no such thing as objective truth. There is no such thing as like a truth external to our opinions. If you basically, so it is if you think so. That's very explicitly and heavy-handedly the moral of the play.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I want to resist the moral of the play a little because like it's so close to being a story about like a burn after reading type of, the Coen brothers
No, no,
film
I
where
know, I know, I know.
there's a conspiracy afoot or not. What do we make of it? Um, and I think, okay, sure, the guy might be right, but what's more fun is that there's only two options. And if you take him at his word, it sounds like there's a million options. But what's more fun is two options. So there is objective, but it's much more specific. It's not there's no objective truth. It's that there very clearly is objective truth. A or B. That's very different from A, B, C, F, G. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I think he's doing that to I think having the two in this case is more just a decision to it's more disturbing that way when you have this sort of like double image that you can like, oh, it's a
yeah.
woman, no, it's a horse, no, it's a rat, no, it's a woman. It's like, and you can just like move back
It's a
and
woman. No, it's a horse. Is
yeah,
that a real one?
yeah, it's one of the two, a woman or a horse.
Like the duck or rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a rat,
Exactly. The
or a
parallel.
necker cube. It's like you can see it either way. Either interpretation is equally plausible. And like that's I, and like that makes it more. I think that makes it more dramatic. The way the play comes out because there's just like, okay, now we've got them over at our apartment and now they're confronting each other and like, oh my god, this son-in-law is having an absolute fucking fit. Clearly he's the one who's insane. And then the mother-in-law leaves after humoring him, and he says, "Well, you see, I resent that you put me in this situation. I had to put on this horrific, anxiety-provoking show just now in order
Yes.
to encourage my mother-in-law and her delusions." Um, and it's like, oh, okay, like you're just that was an act. All right, I don't know. We have no more answers. Neither
Yeah.
is either more plausible. Uh,
Yeah. And then, and the basically the structure of the play is just an accumulation of ambiguities. Oh, yes. Well, one of them was in an insane asylum, either the mother or the wife. Like, well, that doesn't actually help us.
what's so funny is that they get like this comes under like investigation by like higher ups in the government, like I don't know, the governor or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, because the town which they came from had a terrible earthquake that killed so many people and destroyed so many all the archives. And
Yeah.
it's like, from the information, it's like, um, whatever the name of the character, it's like a Mrs. Frola.
Yeah.
It's like, well, wait, Miss or Mrs. We don't know. Um,
Right.
and it's like, okay, we thought we were getting definitive evidence on this one. No, we aren't. We're no closer to the truth after getting this documentary
I mean,
evidence.
there is I mean, obviously, outside of fiction world, I believe in an objective truth to like the event. The
Mhm.
narrative, I don't know if I believe in the objective narrative. I believe in the objective facts, but once you add narrative, it gets very complicated. Outside of this play, for example, we had a No Kings, Trump protest in Salt Lake City a couple weeks ago, and a guy got shot and died. It was pretty brutal and scared a lot of people. But when you actually try and figure out what happened, we still don't have, it's been weeks, a narrative from the police. It was like, oh, either friendly fire of left-wing people who thought they were right-wingers because they had guns, which is wild, or it's like there's like these nine narratives. Now, obviously, they're going to find the truth, but where it's similar to this play is just that like space of ambiguity where you're like, oh, well, if that's true, that's really horrifying. Oh, but if B is true and there was a terrorist attack, that's something else, but also horrifying. So until it becomes known, you have there's kind of this very strange ambiguity there.
Yeah, no, I agree with this, and this is like a of like well, there is an objective reality.
Sure, of
And
course.
like well, and I do think like narratives, like well, what's a narrative? It's like well, what caused what? Like which particular causal chain actually occurred? Um, but like but this is a situation which like dominates so much of human life. Is like you just don't know. Like
Right. And you
like
can't know because you got to move on.
yeah, and it's like I mean, I've heard this is like a thing for various minorities. It's like somebody is like a jerk to them, and they don't know is that because that person's just a jerk and was or just was just having a really bad day, or was it racism?
Right.
I don't know, and I can't tell, and that's kind of an extra level of like frustration in their lives, and like there's all sorts of other things where it's like yeah, what exactly happened? Um, in like all sorts of like I don't know, like what
Yeah.
happened to Jeffrey Epstein? Like I'm not really sure. Maybe it's
Well, and it's one of those cases where the like I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I believe we landed on the moon, obviously. But like with Epstein, there's this added layer of ridiculousness because everyone was there. I mean, it was like everyone in politics. Like there's this, so like you go to people who are QAnon believers, right? And they believe all this crazy stuff, right? And it's like the Democrats are all pedophiles and all these things. But to the best of our ability, you go, well, yeah, I mean, look at all these elites on this pedo island. I mean, that's not your narrative, but I mean, there
it's
they
like
are.
a grain of truth that like gets them off the ground. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's like here.
It's there. But I mean, so getting back
But
to the point, I think that's all relevant, right? Like it may not be the final cause, right? Because I think the suspension of belief in this play is exactly what you said. You can't always know.
yeah,
Like a bare fact of life. There is an objective truth. And, even in the narrative, you'll probably be able to get close enough. I think that's kind of what the Kutagawa
I
is
mean
about.
yeah, the in the bamboo grove.
In a bamboo grove, exactly.
Yeah, and it's like well, I mean, just a more personal, practical kind of situation is it's like there's lots of times I try to judge behavior of myself in the past, and it's hard. It's hard to know like was I actually like honestly believing that at that moment that particular belief and like this was actually the best thing for me to do, or was I like lying to myself in a subtle way and like no, I really was like doing something dishonest. It's sometimes hard to tell and it's very frustrating and I
Very
really wish
frustrating.
and like that's an important one. That's an important one.
I mean, it's your life.
Yeah.
It's the narrative of your own life. And to realize, like, I go, I applied to all these jobs, I didn't get an interview, and now I've fallen in love with writing. and I'm devoting my life to it and having a great time. But like if I got a job teaching music, well then I'd do that. But like there's this deep conflict there of retroactivity where it's like, oh, this everything leads to now. Except for, of course, if it was there, then it would everything would lead to that.
Yeah, and like that's like one thing I remember, like,
Ugh.
at various points, like thinking about, like, sort of like, oh, I'm gonna be this, or I'm gonna be that, I'm gonna be that. It's like, oh, like this moment in my childhood was very important. I remember feeling like, oh, like the fact that I was really good at this one little math puzzle in first grade, and then it's like, oh no, I'm thinking more of teaching, and like, no, that one time I tried to teach something to, like, I don't know, my mother when I was like 3 years old or something, like pretending to be a teacher. Oh, that was kind of important.
Yes.
And it's like I knew very quickly that, like, well, yeah, like the present is informing the particular story that I'm telling about the past and what I see as significant. Now, there's nothing wrong with, in a sense, having a certain, like, well, this line, this particular set of events, like, that's more relevant to me now. I think about it more because of the way my life turned out. Nothing wrong with that. Just like you can have a biography that focuses on someone's political career more than something else that happened in the person's life. Um,
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but it's sort of funny.
Well, no, I mean it's funny and it's also like um at the bookstore we got in Bill Clinton's new book, um, which is like his life after the presidency, like what he's been doing. And we got in like 20 copies and zero, of course. We've sold zero of those books because I don't even know why this book exists. I
Why
guess it's just
would
funny, but
why would you read that?
yeah, like it's also like there's a lot going on in the world with fascinating characters
I
and
mean,
figures.
and it's like Bill Clinton. It's so, I don't know. It's like that's like one of the least interesting. Like, I'm more interested in President Bush. Like, you tell me about your
With his
painting.
watercolors.
Yeah, that's more fun. And like one thing that's I want to say, like some of his paintings are actually kind of endearing to me. Like, yeah, they're not
Yeah,
like I just feel like, oh, I'm glad there was something of a human being under there.
thank God. Oh, there always was with Bush. He was always a there's always a war crime cutie.
But
So
anyway.
in the Pirandello, so like to kind of like tie this play together, there is a wife.
There is
So
a wife and we get to meet her.
I there's an ambiguity. There's a moment formally where I think, you know, is this going to be like one of those Family Guy episodes where the wife turns out to be a corpse or a lizard or a ghost? But no, there's a lady, which is funny too.
Yeah, I think I was feeling like, is there a wife at all? Like I was wondering
Yep.
if that was a possibility. But then it didn't happen, and it's like, okay, what basically they say is, uh let me just see if I can find it here.
Oh yeah, because she basically, yeah, find it.
Yeah, it was nice. Um, like the particular phrasing. Hold on, dear viewer. Dum, 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 dum.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yes, yes. I found
what
it.
else could you want from me after this, ladies and gentlemen? Here, as you have seen, we have an unfortunate incident that must remain hidden, because only in that way can the remedy which compassion provides be of any use. So the truth exists in the eyes of the wife. Like she is the subject supposed to know, and she does know, but she is not going to tell you because for all of this whole family nonsense to hold together, it must remain hidden.
Yeah. So it's some third possibility, presumably, or maybe it's just the original one of the two. I mean, who knows? That's the point. Um, I felt a little. By the way, just reading this play, like there was a little bit of just reading Laudisi and how like he just makes it very clear his view of well, it's only true if you say so. It made it very clear to me we're not going to get an answer, are we? Um, like that was
Yeah.
already like predicted.
You know what? This is a small critique, but not, is I think the title should have been like The Wife. I think calling it this, I don't know. It fits Pirandello really well, but it just felt too cutesy for me. Where
Yeah, I
but
mean
the
it's.
wife is like, oh, it's because the wife is the subject supposed to know in this whole arrangement, and we don't get her until the last scene of the whole play, but yet the whole thing is structured around her.
I mean the thing is it's like frustrating or disappointing about in a sense is there's no real anxiety in a sense. It's a sort of politely funny. It's a sort of like, isn't it funny that the town is like in a state of anxiety about what's basically just irrelevant gossip?
Right.
Um, and it's like with the father, Strindberg's the father, it's like he's genuinely in a state of furious anxiety about is this my daughter? Is this my daughter? Like that's a big deal, the fact he doesn't know. That's the center of the plot. Now in this case it's a comedy, like Pirandello is a comedian, and that's fine. So maybe you don't have the heavy-handed anxiety of Strindberg, um, but there's something I don't know how you. I want there to be a little more teeth to this situation.
I also think it does. I think you're exactly right. A little more teeth. Plays like this is not even related, but I'm going to give it as an example. Plays like Agamemnon have this aura that transcends history. It's this aura, and it's kind of magic. You're like, wow, how does dread work so well with so few words? Pinter has this absurdity to him that's so human. It's so deep and it's so worthwhile. And I don't know, we're kind of on the surface with Pirandello. Like I think we're at
Yeah, yeah, like actually, that's a good comparison with Pinner. Because Pinner,
yeah.
I mean, Pinner's funny in an important way. I mean, it's very funny reading him,
Oh yeah,
but like,
it's
but
great.
you feel the anxiety. You know, like you feel the sense of things are not right. This Goldberg does not have my best um intentions in mind. I cannot. This old woman who
Yeah.
having the cloying affection of is gross, whatever relation I'm having there. It's so rich that feeling. Um, I don't get that with Pirandello, and I don't actually. And one thing that's unfortunate is, I mean, I don't really get that many memorable characters here. They're sort of kind of memorable stances, like La Desi, it's like, oh, you know, this funny little skeptic, but I don't know. I don't have the feeling I have as for like Goldberg, again, just to stress him, or even McMahon, a much lesser character. I
Isn't there
like those
something?
characters stick in my mind. It's some
Yeah.
human there.
Well, okay, so the big the big thing I'm thinking, putting everything that we're thinking together, there's something kind of perverse about not truly believing you're gonna know. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, like we have to live our lives this way. And I know this is just town gossip, but if we're extrapolating to the universal, I mean, it's a bad position. But it feels rotten. Like if that actually is Pirandello's belief, like no, that's not my I don't believe that. Like I can't relate to that in a sort of author level.
Well, I can relate. I can feel like that's a good position to have philosophically. Like that's a valid place to be to feel. We never really know. We're always just sort of calculating between vague possibilities. This truth we have is a sort of construction that will be falsified eventually.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's not the problem. The problem is he's sort of blasé, like he doesn't
he's
have a
very
desire.
blasé about it. Like
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's no
it's not a
pursuit.
tragedy. It's not a tragedy,
Yeah, yeah.
or it's
But
not.
isn't there
I mean,
something wrong with that?
yeah, no, I feel there's
Yeah,
something wrong with,
yeah, like
or at least I don't know. Like, I feel like you can go with some other, maybe not tragic. Like I can imagine maybe some other dimension emotionally. Like, oh, okay, I'm just making myself a little bit like grossed out, but like a certain like, oh, all this different fantasy and all these different imaginative places we can like. That's like the ending of one of Woody Allen's movies. I think Shadow and Fog, where he's
haven't seen it.
now what?
I just said haven't seen it, but
Okay,
keep going.
well that one is his German expressionism movie, like playing off of sort of tropes or aspects of German expressionism, which is really funny and cute in a lot of ways. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it for many years, but I liked it when I saw it. And in it, at the very there's a murderer. There's a murderer on the loose, and like a lot of the story is just like there's a murderer, and like there's different people trying to find the murderer, and they're breaking up into different like groups, and they're like fighting with each other and killing each other about the right methods to find the murderer, and it's very Kafka-esque in a
Okay.
very explicit way, but it's also just Woody Allen funny. And in the very end, it's like you ever get the sense, and pretty clearly, like, oh, well, the murderer gives everyone meaning. The
Oh,
murderer gives them
yeah.
some like organizational principle. So, yeah, the murderer is almost an illusion, but it it plays a role in their lives. And like, I don't know, that's at least a stance. That's at least
Yeah.
something. It's not one of his best movies. It's not like the most convincing ending in various ways because happy endings in Woody Allen movies don't generally feel they belong. Um, but but he's it's funny. I mean, it's like that's a position to take of like something else here of like we never get reality, but the illusions matter to us. That's something. Pirandello isn't really doing that. He's just saying like, yeah, we don't know about frankly this very trivial incident, and like, yeah, that gets under our skin, but well, who cares?
Yeah, I find that maybe it's why I liked it is because I don't like that. And I like it when I find good art that does a thing where I go, "Oh, I'm bristling." Because I don't bristle a lot. I'm very like liberal, like sure, hit me with whatever you got. But his position in this play I found so irritating. And
Yeah,
it works structurally, like it's fine. It works in the play.
yeah. I mean, like when you texted me that like this is kind of an SNL sketch. The six characters. I think that you probably that's what you read at the time, but like I thought it was relevant to the other this play.
Hmm.
I mean, I barely ever watch any SNL, but like yeah, that sort of tone is not irrelevant to Pirandello. Like it doesn't quite it doesn't take itself as seriously as it ought to. It's a very in this case, it's a very fine piece of craftsmanship. His play, like
Oh yeah, and they both are. They're very
yeah,
well
yeah,
crafted.
they're both just like excellent plays in terms
Oh,
of
of
like
course.
the way things build up and crescendo and build suspense. Like you get a lot to learn from it structurally, but as you know, a human document, it rather fails. I want to say.
I totally agree. I want, and this is where it kind of goes to the theme of our podcast is art and trauma. You could argue that this is the least traumatic thing we've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm comparing it to like obviously another place to go is Pynchon, with Crying of Lot 49. I like this better than that, but I will say at the very least, there's Pension is kind of gesturing at a position. He's gesturing at a certain sort of trauma. It's
Sort of like a paranoiac American thing.
yeah, like it's like there's something interesting about like yeah, we keep like delving into these deeper conspiracy theories that like get
Mhm.
increasingly baroque,
Yeah.
sometimes literally. With the Jacobin play section. The fuck. Um it's great.
Yeah, but it still has that it has that same lightness to it,
I mean,
which I know a lot of people love, but like and with Pynchon he gets way deeper in later novels, which I like. His position changes, but I think there's still sort of a thing to be said for them being equally surfacey. I
yeah, I mean, I like nothing in this one makes my eyes roll. So I just want to give Pirandello that little positive. Everything's very crystalline. Every word's in the right place. I'm very happy about like the energy he conveys. It's a very successful, competent work of art. It's a little bit mean to say that about it. It's like, oh, your play, it's very competent.
You
Like
sound like Hermes in Futurama going, "You're technically correct, the best kind." He's the accountant, the Jamaican accountant.
that's great.
But I mean, contrast that with stuff that is so common in our era that we both really like is okay, Cowboy Bebop, okay, Rick and Morty, Futurama. These are all zany, kooky shows that do a lot of techniques that are found in Pirandello. But there's heart. There's character. You always say that about Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty has heart.
Yeah, and like you need to it needs to actually like Pirandello isn't quite putting himself all into it. It feels like he isn't quite giving you the full. Now, I think maybe like some of the other plays, I have some suspicion that some of the other plays maybe does more. With that, I'm very curious to learn more about Pirandello as a human being because it is such a
He's a
unique voice.
he's a unique voice. He's very forward reaching. He reminds me of Satie.
Hmm.
Is Satie's music. Like he has a piece called Vexations, I think. I think it's that one. It's like an etude that's 1 minute, but it says, play for 9 hours. And he has other things like I think he has a piece called Seven Reflections on a Flabby Boob. And like he's got all these things. He was very obsessed with his collection of hats, whatever. But there's a I think that you say a lot of times, that's home or that's not home, in the world of art. You say, I this is nothing about experimental versus non-experimental. There's always good art is always in a certain degree doing something originary. Not original,
Yeah,
originary, like from the source of whatever, the
that's
wellspring. But a lot of these experimental movements in the 20th century, eh, there's so much coming from and there's so much there, but there's sort of like also this. I love experimental art. I love reading all this stuff. It's really entertaining, and I am also an experimental artist. Don't get me wrong, but the movements that they spawn, I kind of go, eh,
yeah. I mean, no, Pirandello doesn't really. He strikes me as like a figure by himself, and I
fair enough.
his emotional register just. This is a man who very clearly lived before the Holocaust. Um,
Whereas Pinter, remember Pinter's maxim?
yeah.
Don't let them tell you what to do. Remember, I mean, and for Pinter, don't let them tell you what to do. I don't know. There's something more, something there.
I mean, it's I want, I don't know why. I just want to mention Uber Roy. Um, it's just that's a play that is also just goofy in a
Yeah.
fundamental way. It's just going all over the place and just buy my green candle. Like you have that phrase rubbed just like rubbed into you mercilessly. But there's all sorts of stuff in it that I just I mean, it should just be goofy, but there's still some kind of like you don't care about the characters; they're all awful. But
Hmm.
it has an edge to it. It has a meanness about it. It's like there's a real hatred of like what Ubu Roy represents. So even in this like detached paranoid fashion, it's like you feel what Alfred Jerry's resentment towards like this class.
Yeah.
Gallo is just like, well, sometimes we don't know.
Well, I think like Salah. So, we read the Salah novel and it's not funny, but obviously, I mean, it's a little funny, but like, he's so grandiose and there's sort of this you lose sense of reality. But one sec. But in his novel, in his novel, San Camillo 1936, he has the most brutal epigraph at the beginning I've ever seen in my life. To the conscripts of 1937, all of whom lost something, their life, their freedom, their dreams, their hope, their decency, and not to the adventurers from abroad, fascists or Marxists, who had their fill of killing Spaniards like rabbits, and whom no one had invited to take part in our funerals. And they're like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I've never seen an epigraph like that where I'm reading it and I'm like, this dude's pissed as hell. Um, but like, that just doesn't sound like that other novel. So I think what I'm saying is I don't want to use these two plays and judge all of Pirandello.
Yeah, I, I
No.
I imagine there's other ones where he probably gets more of himself into it. But these were very. I feel good feelings to dear Luigi. Like I
Yeah, I mean he's great. I mean I feel a little rude actually the way we've been talking about
yeah,
him.
it's just like, oh, I mean, sure, it's a work of remarkable craftsmanship of which only maybe a 20 men in a generation can do, but it doesn't hit at me on a metaphysical, philosophical level. Like,
Yeah, like who the fuck are we? I don't know. Although I would say not De Benedetto. Who's the guy we read with the dog novel, Asleep in the Sun? A boy
oh,
carries Sarah's.
yeah, yeah, boy,
I feel like
Casarius, yeah.
yeah, I feel like Pirandello could be his favorite writer. Not they're not the same, but there's a sense of
Well,
inspiration there.
okay, boy is more. There's more like tragedy for him. There's more of himself getting in there. I don't know. I just think about moments in that novel, just the weird, just what are you doing? What is this weird gesture you're making? Like it just it it feels like him. It
Yeah.
just feels like this very awkward, ungainly, but sincere creature. But it's funny looking back on that novel, Sleep in the Sun, because I have so much more heart or tenderness for him now. He also did The Invention of Morel, and that one has a much greater tragedy. That one's a much more raw novel. Jesus Christ. Um, yeah, that was like at the beginning of like when I really started reading modernist literature, and I need to return to that. Anyway,
Anyway,
well,
it's a good choice, Ray. I really enjoyed. Uh, I mean, we really talked deeply about what do we want from literature. I would also say that I'm not like legislating with a hammer. I do like just fun things.
This
It's
was fun. This
fine.
is a good
Yeah,
time.
it's fun.
I like this was a good one, and it's
So that there's no trauma in this one for me. It's
yeah,
just fun.
it really
Invader Zim.
it the the closest thing is just that way the in six characters how they transition from being like literary to living as their characters.
Yeah.
That gesture was that's haunting to me. That's something new under the sun for me. I just wish it was used to effect. Um,
Yeah.
like I wonder where it gets where that happens. I hear actually apparently Joseph Heller, the Catch 22, he has a play where it's like that where it's you have like three layers. You have the actors themselves, like the actual persons of the actors. You have the actors playing actors, and then you have the actual play
Wow.
of like being like bombers in like I don't know World War III or World War II. I don't know. And that sounded interesting. That sounded fun. I've tried to find that play and I can't find it. Um,
Yeah, it's I liked Catch 22 though.
yeah, no, I like Kick 22, and there was well, I haven't finished it. I liked what I did read. I liked it very much what I did
I
read.
did either. I read it in high school. No, I think I finished it. I just don't, it's so long ago.
Yeah, I remember there was just like one character described as he looked like he was done in Panacolor or whatever like the new color was for films.
Oh yeah, Technicolor.
Technicolor. And it's like that was just for that the book should be remembered. That was such a clever line. Anyway, all right. So this is great, Chris. And next time we're doing the I'm forgetting that how to pronounce it. Kutse,
Oakley.
Kotsi. All right. So that'll be fun.
All
Um,
right. It'll be fun.
all right. Okay. Bye.
Bye.